Hello, welcome to the show. This is HackHunter, where we review some of the best and worst tattoo artists in our country. Now, this is part number 2 of our Spokane, Washington episode, and if you haven't seen part number 1, go check it out. We found some phenomenal artists that we just had to recommend. But while we were out in Spokane, we came across quite a few artists that were kind of a little sketchy, a little questionable, and we'll be talking about one of them today. So, without further ado, enter Anthony Delit. You can find him working at All About It Tattoo there in Spokane, Washington. I couldn't tell if he was the owner, couldn't figure that out, but I can tell you he's been tattooing many years. And if you want to check out their studio on Instagram, All About It Tattoo. If you want to check out his Delit Red Boy 1 on Instagram, where I recommend you always do your own research before deciding on an artist. But let me show you the highlights. First off, this is not his, I don't believe. This guy came in wanting to cover up. I don't know why you'd want to cover up such an epic, giant Mickey Mouse tattoo on your neck. I mean, I can't imagine why you'd want to cover that up at all. But he did want to cover it up. He went to Anthony. Let's see how Anthony did. Bam! Heavy, dark, muddy work. Now, to some of you guys, this might look good, but I got to dive into it. Well, first of all, you can't really see Mickey, so I give him a little bit of props there. I can still see where the ears were. I can see the nose and the smile a little bit, but man, this is just heavy, dark, muddy. This thing does not breathe at all. And something I had to point out, we talked about this on the last episode, actually. This area right up here behind the ears, not easy to work with. It's really thin, very delicate skin. It's often very oily skin as well, so it makes it so artists have a hard time blending colors or fully saturating colors there, or especially blending grays there. And so you can tell Anthony obviously had a hard time. And then down here by the collarbone, very similar thing where the skin's kind of pitted, there's bone near the surface, so it's really thin, delicate, easy to mess up, hard for artists to control our depth. When the thickness and density of skin is changing so quickly from area to area, it's really hard for a lot of artists to control depth. So you want an artist that has experience doing necks, so they're not going to get their gray all scratchy and etchy looking like this. Another thing I got to point out is this hair. You can see the hair coming out right through the tattoo. You can see how close it is to his hairline there. This is something I've harped about in the past. You got to have an artist that's prepping the skin properly. So if you guys are out there looking for a tattoo artist and you're seeing hair that's not shaved, that's just a really simple, obvious red flag. But moving on, I have to show this is what most of his artwork looked like, okay? And this is what I see wrong with this right off the bat is just it's way too heavily saturated with the outlines, right? He just overused that outliner. And another one of his MOs is this really light gray shading. And obviously this is not a complete piece, so I don't want to judge it, but I saw this throughout his portfolio. A lot of these pieces like this were just so heavily outlined, and then just the use of light gray throughout. Not really a lot of depth to talk about. If I zoom in here, we can see how etchy his gray wash turns out, even on an arm where it's a little bit easier for us artists, or quite a bit easier for us artists to saturate and create blends. It still comes out really kind of chunky and etchy looking. Also, what's up with these fingers? How is he holding that gun? Give that a look. How many fingers? Let me count the fingernails. 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, 5. Like, this is weird. 1, 2, 3, 4. But then there's one sticking out here as well. This is strange. I think obviously he did not mean to do that. Just a lack of planning, a lack of effort put in here. This is simple mistakes made. This one I'm only seeing 3 fingernails. I guess this one was just tucked in a weird way, and very unnatural looking hand though, so you can tell he really struggles with his art composition, making things look 3D, making them look dynamic, and like there's a consistent light source throughout. Also, this dude obviously just got bashed in the nose. Look at that, just weird smashed pig nose. But most of his work though, the realistic type stuff where he was going for realism, same thing. Just look at all this outlining he did. Outline, way overdid it. Now I know there's a lot of artists out there that intentionally do a lot of fine line work, but this is not the same thing. This is somebody who is having a hard time knowing how to make it look 3D, so he's just using his outliner too much. And here in the small detail, he definitely missed the mark. You really can't tell how those gears are working or where they are. It's just a jumbled mess in there. So somebody definitely shook the hell out of that pocket watch. Now this one, from a distance, I thought it actually looked pretty good at first. But again, what I'm seeing is his overuse of this light gray tone, and then his blacks. Well, first off, he should not have outlined this tree. I see so many artists with these pine trees lately. They're kind of a popularized thing right now, pine trees, and they outline them like this. All these little outlines in here, it totally ruins the realistic look though. What artists should be doing is taking a round shader and texturing each one of those branches the way they are meant to look. But if you outline them, it turns it into a real cartoony kind of clip art looking tree. But also, major red flag, if an artist outlining black is a lot darker than their fill-in black, that's just a major red flag. Tells me he's not really got his saturation game on point yet. He's still learning that, and it's just not coming out good. But like I said, he's been tattooing many years, and the artwork has not changed a bit. Here's another example of his pine trees, and this just looks like a burnt down forest. That does not resemble just live natural pine trees at all. Just real squiggly and etchy looking. Very disappointing when artists take the quick route like that. Here's one where somebody brought in this photo, and to be honest, this is not the best photo for a portrait. It's really not. It's just way too overexposed. The background kind of matches the light tones in the dog, so that's not really good. I think most artists would kind of change this background and make the dog stand out better, kind of edit it in Photoshop so you can see a better contrast. But let's see how Anthony did. Yep, overdid the outline there and way too light gray shading all around. So this is going to come out really, really washed out looking. I really wish that I could see the healed version of this one. I couldn't find it in his portfolio, but I promise you if we did see it, it would just be very light and jumbled looking. It would not have that kind of crisp definition that you want in a realism kind of portraiture situation. And again, here's a situation where he could have used a lot more black. You're telling me the inside of that cab would be the same shade as the front of this grill? No, not at all. This is just an example of how he definitely doesn't have his light sources down, or maybe he's just having a hard time with his black and gray saturation. Maybe he doesn't know how to blend grays as well, but they're all coming out real flat and two-dimensional looking because he's using the same tone of gray throughout the whole thing. Here's one, though, where he didn't. He used a lot of darker tones, but look at this honeycomb. Each one of these holes is facing a different direction. The shadows are different on each one of these. And if I really zoom in, you can see how etched they were. So I could tell he was kind of rushing, trying to get through this and just kind of putting it in there. But like, it really is not cohesive, does not make sense. And again, with the rows here over the top with the line work and just really, really kind of squiggly looking lines throughout. If you haven't seen part number 1, you got to see. Jeremy Corns was the artist we featured, and he did an amazing color, realistic looking bee. And it was just amazing looking. And if you compare the two, it's just a night and day difference. This more just looks like a swatted fly, a little squished fly there, unfortunately. Here's some of his anime work, and you know, it really kind of lacks that definition and clarity and that crispness that you want for that sort of anime work. It's usually a lot more vibrant, saturated, and the outline is very, very important in that anime work. So you can see he really missed the mark on that. Doesn't really resemble the anime that you're used to seeing. This was probably the best one of his. I had to give him at least one where I thought it looked halfway decent. He's missing a lot of shadows in here, right? On these leaves here, the petals, there'd be a drop shadow there where the leaves would look shadowed in some places. And there's some parts of the petal right in here, for example, right in here, where there should be black shading or at least darker red, but he just didn't do it. So it's still, I'm seeing a lot of red flags, a lot of kind of cutting corners, or where he just doesn't know where he's supposed to put his shadows. This is another one that from a distance looks good, but man, when you zoom in on that eagle's head, it is busted. That is very strange. Does not look quite like an eagle's supposed to look. And a lot of the line work, again, blown out to hell. Look at that. Look at how much bleed out occurred right there. That means an artist is going way too deep, or they're going at a sharp angle with their outliner, and they're creating this bleed out. And it's definitely an undesired effect, unintentional effect. This one, I don't even think I have to say anything. Who knows? I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe that's what the customer asked for. But overall, I just saw a lot of cutting corners. The custom artwork was very lacking. The color saturation, the shading was just not working well for you. And for an artist that's been doing it as long as you have, you should definitely be a little bit better by now. So Anthony Delit, all about a tattoo, ends up on our hack list. Thanks for sticking around, guys. That's it for Spokane, Washington, but we'll see you in the next city. All right, have a good one. Bye.